All right, good morning. Welcome to the channel. I just wanted to kind of put my thoughts out there on the war with Iran. Um, I've been around for a while. I'm 50 years old, so I kind of know the history with Iran. Um, I'm not a great scholar of global politics or anything like that by any means, but I do pay attention to some of that stuff. And when it comes to Iran, I know their history, their history with the world, Iran, the Iranian regime is a very evil regime. They kill their people in the tens of thousands for protesting and things like this. The Iranian people, they're good people. Most of them, they just want to live their lives, just like the rest of us. They don't want wars. They don't want people dying everywhere. They don't want any of that. They're just like the rest of us. None of us want that. But the problem is the regime that's in charge there, their government that's in charge. It's a very brutal uh, government, and they kill their people en masse. The Iranian government, they lie, they cheat, they deceive, they break every deal that they've made. They're always looking to sneak around and get around everything. So they're not a good government. They're a state that supports terrorism. So they're not a good regime in power for anybody, not only the U.S. but for the world. But they, especially the Iranian regime, they don't like the U.S., especially that. Um, and so, you know, this war is necessary, I believe, and I'll get to that. One thing I'm seeing over here is protests. It doesn't seem to be too bad, as some protests go. Um, but there are pockets of protesters here and there. I saw a video about the protesters in Indianapolis, and um, it's so they say, in the protests, one of the points brought up, right? Well, the money could be spent over here. That's true, right? Money could always be allocated to something else from something else, right? Um, but I think this war with Iran, we don't really have a choice. This needs to take precedent over a lot of other things right now, um, because what's going on with them in this war is there's a bigger picture there, other than just kind of the money could be spent on different things over here. There's a lot of more factors that need to be looked at. Yeah, we could be spending the money over here on food and medical and helping out, poor people and all these things, right? And social programs. Yeah, we could do that. Absolutely, we could do that. But what's being done in Iran with this war is vital to the US, and people don't see that how vital that is. And it's not only vital to the US, but it's vital to the rest of the world. um you know and I see, how the US gets entangled in wars and innocent people get killed, and you know but buildings that shouldn't have been bombed accidentally get bombed and things of this nature, right? In all wars, there's always going to be collateral damage, right? In any endeavor that you take like this, there's always going to be collateral damage. That's why you want to avoid as much as possible having these wars. But just because something's unpleasant, like a war, it doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be done. And this is a war that I believe absolutely needs to be done. And I'm getting to that, So yeah, uh, and again, another thing I see is people focusing on we need to end the war, to get gas prices down. Uh, that is a very, very small lens to see this through. There are some really big things going on with this war, some things that are vital to the US and the rest of the world. And having lower gas prices is something that should not be on the radar for anybody else. There, I understand the high gas prices. Nobody likes to pay. I don't like to pay them, but there are some bigger issues at play here other than high gas prices. Um, and it's I see all these things too in the protests talking about not wanting war. We all just need to get along and all this, right? And I mean, I'm for that. I am absolutely for that. But some people do not want that to happen. It doesn't matter if I want peace. It doesn't matter if you want peace. Um, there's some people that just want to see the world burn. That's all they want. And unfortunately, the world is not rainbows, gumdrops, and lollipops. Sometimes bad people have to be dealt with because they pose a threat to the rest of the world and to other people. Um, so that kind of gets me to my point of why I think this war is absolutely necessary, not only for the US, but for the rest of the world. Um, you know, like we talked about before, Iran is a terrorist state, they support terrorism. Um, Now, when it comes to Iran's nuclear program, um, they hide it. They do everything they can to hide it and sneak around. Like I said before, they break agreements, right, with the nuclear inspectors. And we're trying to get all that back on track. We're trying to reel that back in and get it under control. Um, because Iran cannot be allowed to have nuclear weapons. They will use them if they have them. Um, you know, it, Here in the US, if people think high gas prices is a problem, if Iran gets nuclear weapons, their number one target is going to be within the borders of the United States. So I know some people don't like high gas prices, but I bet you that they really would not like a nuclear bomb going off in their city. So this is a war that is absolutely necessary for the security of everyone. They cannot have nuclear weapons because they will use them if they get them. And so that's kind of why I think this war is important, it's a must. It's not a question anymore. It has to happen. The stakes are getting too high. You know, this could be, let's say we didn't fight this war, right? This could be a moment where in the future they look back in history to this moment in time and they said, yeah, you know, maybe somebody should have acted because they could have prevented a nuclear war. Maybe somebody could have acted to prevent millions of deaths. Um, we don't want to have history looking back and saying that. We have a moment right now to do something about this situation, and I think we need to do it. So that was all I had to say this morning. So I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.